if you just pick up a rock from your driveway.
Yeah.
Or like hold a piece of solid wood. You trust your senses.
Right. Yeah. Because it's a physical thing.
Exactly. It's real, it has weight, it displaces space, and it has this inherent, unchangeable reality to it.
Yeah. It exists completely independently of your opinion about it.
Right.
If every human being on Earth suddenly stopped believing the concept of a rock,
Right.
you could still trip over it and break your toe.
Yeah.
It is just a physical constant of nature.
Yeah, exactly. But then you look at the invisible architectures that are, like, governing our everyday lives.
Oh, man, yeah.
Think about the money sitting in your wallet right now, or think about the borders drawn on a world map. Think about the massive, literally life or death authority that we collectively grant to a piece of paper with signatures on it, or, a piece of cloth flying on a pole.
It's all constructed.
Right. When you really stare at those things, that solid, unyielding reality of the rock just kind of vanishes.
It does. We step out of the realm of physical constants and into a landscape built entirely on collective imagination.
Yeah.
It's a reality constructed by mutual agreement. And honestly, more often than not, by engineered belief.
And that brings us to the core of what we are doing today, because if you're listening to this, you likely consider yourself a free citizen.
Right.
You believe the dollar or euro in your pocket holds, like, actual intrinsic value.
Of course. That's the baseline assumption.
Yeah. You probably trust that when you walk into a voting booth, your individual vote aggregates mathematically into a sovereign, legitimate power. But what if the entire architecture of modern governance, everything, from the central bank printing your money to the parliament passing your laws, what if it's an engineered illusion?
That is a huge question.
It is. What if, without even realizing it, you are pledging your life to a manufactured proxy, one that quietly extracts your wealth and actively overrides the unchangeable laws of nature?
It is an incredibly heavy, almost dizzying premise to wrap your head around.
Totally. So today we are doing a deep dive. We are unpacking a highly systematic, intensely structural collection of documents from what is called the AZADI project.
Yes.
And these sources, they present a comprehensive theological, philosophical, and economic critique of secular governance.
They really do. They go after modern central banking and the very concept of the nation state.
Right. They argue that the current global system doesn't just have, like, a few flaws. They say it actually operates on a deceptive matrix of systemic shirk.
Which in Islamic theology means associating partners with God.
Exactly, and mathematical financial slavery. It is intense.
It really is.
Now, before we really dive into the mechanics of this, I want to level with everyone listening. This is not a light read.
No, definitely not.
The source materials we are looking at contain highly charged political, religious, and systemic viewpoints. It's an explosive structural critique.
Very explosive.
And as we walk through this, I want to be incredibly clear. We aren't here to take sides. We aren't endorsing this framework, and we aren't condemning it either.
Right. We're strictly neutral here.
Exactly. Our job today is purely forensic. We are putting on our structural engineering hats to examine the architecture of their argument exactly as the original authors laid it out.
Yeah, because whether you agree with the ultimate conclusions or not, the mechanical purity of what they are arguing is just absolutely fascinating.
I think forensic is the perfect word for it. We are examining the architecture of a massive argument.
Because the AZADI project doesn't just throw out, like, philosophical complaints. They provide a highly structured diagnostic frame.
Right, they break it down.
Yeah, into specific tiers of analysis.
Yeah.
And the system prompts for this material actually instructs us to run two of their main critiques concurrently.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, so we need to look at the introductory pathological hooks, which is their breakdown of fiat banking. And at the exact same time, look at their analysis of the Oath of Allegiance.
Because they are deeply connected in this framework, right?
Exactly. To understand the overarching control mechanism, you have to start with the money.
Follow the money.
Always. Because if you want to understand how a system operates, you don't look at the speeches the politicians give. You follow the currency.
Okay, so the text opens with what they call the pathology of deception.
Right.
Which is an exploration of how fiat currency mathematically guarantees systemic debt.
That is precisely where the indictment begins. The AZADI project frames the modern central banking system and the very concept of fiat currency, not just as, like, bad economic policy,
but as institutionalized theft.
Yes. Institutionalized theft without fingerprints. The core equation driving this entire tier of their critique is devastatingly simple.
Let's hear it.
They state it outright. Money equals debt equals slavery.
Money equals debt equals slavery. Let's slow down and actually look at the mechanics of that.
Okay, yeah.
Because I think a lot of people assume that when a bank loans you money, they are lending you the deposits of other customers.
Right, the classic piggy bank idea.
Yeah, like someone put in $10,000 and the bank is lending that $10,000 to you.
Which makes sense intuitively.
Right, but that's not how modern fractional reserve banking works at all, is it?
Not even close. When you go to a bank for a mortgage, the bank doesn't move existing money from a vault into your account.
Wait, they don't?
No. They literally just type digits into a computer ledger.
Yeah.
They manufacture that money out of nothing at the exact moment you sign the loan document.
That is just wild to think about.
It is. The money is created simultaneously with the debt. In a fiat system, if all the debt in the world were suddenly paid off, the money supply would literally vanish.
Okay, so the money is the debt.
Exactly. And the text brings out some massive historical hitters to back this up.
Oh yeah, they quote Henry Kissinger, right?
They do. He notoriously said, whoever controls money controls the world.
But the quote that really stopped me in my tracks was from Sir Josiah Stamp.
Oh, that one is incredible.
Right. So he was the president of the Bank of England, a director of the bank, speaking way back in 1927.
A true insider.
Yeah. And he openly stated that the modern banking system, quote, manufactures money out of nothing.
He didn't mince words at all.
No. He said banking was conceived in inequity and born in sin.
And what is structurally fascinating here is how the AZADI text takes that raw admission from a central banker and runs it through a theological diagnostic tool.
Okay, what do they call it?
They call it the Reba Litmus Test Matrix.
The Reba Litmus Test Matrix. Okay, and Reba, in this specific context, refers to usury, right? Like interest and exploitative financial extraction.
Exactly. But the matrix establishes a much deeper currency metric. It says that in the natural order of the universe, only the creator has the power to create something from nothing.
Oh, I see where they're going with this.
Yeah. Therefore, when private banks or central banks type numbers into a ledger and create fiat currency out of thin air, the text argues they are doing far more than just printing money.
They are committing a usurpation.
Yes, a usurpation of a divine constant. They are mechanically playing God.
Wow. And if man-made money is manufactured as debt, it acts as a mechanism of permanent subjugation? Let's make this real for the listener. Think of it like walking into a completely rigged casino.
That's a great analogy.
Right. So you, the citizen, have to bring real physical labor to the table. You are trading your time, your sweat, your actual life energy for casino chips.
Real human kinetic energy.
Yes. But the house, meaning the central banking system, they can just print those chips infinitely out of thin air at zero cost to themselves.
Right.
So if they can infinitely dilute the value of the chips you bled for, mathematically, you can never get ahead.
You can't. You are fundamentally enslaved to the printing press.
And the text argues this structurally guarantees that the rich remain permanently rich, while the poor are trapped as a wage slave class.
Which is why the AZADI sources demand a hard reset to what they term the Sunnah standard.
The Sunnah standard. Okay, break that down.
So, to be free of this mathematical exploitation, they argue currency must be backed by intrinsic tangible assets, specifically gold and silver.
Tangible things.
Right. This is what they call Sunnah money. Resources that have value, hard-coded into creation by the creator. You cannot print a bar of gold.
No, you can't.
You cannot digitally generate an ounce of silver by typing on a keyboard.
Because it requires actual kinetic energy, like mining, refining, human effort to bring it into existence.
Exactly. It imposes a natural physical limit on human greed. You can't hyperinflate gold because you are bound by the physical limits of the earth.
Right. It locks the financial system into the constants of reality.
Precisely. But of course, the current global system explicitly prevents this.
Oh, they do.
Yeah. And this leads to the next step in their matrix. They call it the legislative shirk parameter.
The legislative shirk parameter.
Yes. The sources point directly to international financial architecture, specifically the International Monetary Fund, or IMF.
Okay, what does the IMF do in this context?
Well, the IMF's Articles of Agreement explicitly prohibit member states from tying their currencies to gold.
Wait, really? So the global financial body legally bans the very thing the text says is the only mathematically fair money?
Yes.
How does the AZADI framework categorize that ban?
The text argues that by declaring what is halal meaning permissible and naturally grounded, like gold-backed money, to be haram or prohibited, these secular institutions are engaging in an open operational war with divine law.
Oh, wow.
They are committing systemic shirk. They are legally mandating sood, or riba, as the absolute inescapable law of the land.
That is a staggering claim. They mandate sood. But it forces a very obvious question, I think.
What's that?
Well, if you and I can sit here and map out how this fiat system extracts human labor, if the theft is mathematically this obvious, why isn't there a revolt?
Right.
Like, how is this system legally protected? And more importantly, how is it justified to the masses without everyone just throwing up their hands and walking away from the table entirely?
And that is the pivotal transition in the AZADI text, because we have to run the oath of allegiance analysis in parallel.
Okay, let's tie them together.
The authors understand that you cannot run a system of obvious, grinding exploitation without a massive, parallel legal fiction to mask it.
Right, people would notice.
Exactly. You can't just put a gun to a billion people's heads and say, work for our fake money. It's too inefficient.
Yeah, that doesn't scale.
No. Instead, you need an unquestionable symbol to act as a psychological shield. The system requires you to actively revere the very structure that is extracting your wealth.
Oh, man. Which brings us to the psychological and legal architecture the sources call Deen-e secularism.
Yes, Deen-e secularism.
The text describes this as the, quote, one-eyed religion of a godless world.
That is a powerful phrase.
It is. It's a system of purely materialistic deception. And to understand how it functions, we have to introduce a very specific mandatory concept from the project.
Right, this is crucial.
They refer to the ultimate symbol of the secular authority as the country-state flag god idol.
And we must treat that phrase, country-state flag god idol, as a single, indivisible analytical unit to truly grasp their argument.
Okay, so we don't break that phrase up.
Right. The text outlines a mechanical progression to explain how this idol is built. They call it the make-believe chain.
The make-believe chain. Let's break that chain down link by link.
Okay, so it starts with the concept of the state itself. The state, fundamentally, is an invisible legal abstraction.
Right.
You can't point to the state. You can point to land, you can point to people, but the state is just an idea.
Yeah, you can't touch it.
Exactly. So to make that invisible abstraction tangible, they write a constitution. Now, the idea has a holy book.
Okay, I follow.
Then, to give that constitution a physical, visceral presence for the masses to emotionally revere, they elevate the flag.
Ah, the flag.
And finally, you have what the text calls Taghut, which they define as the human legislative mouthpiece.
The Taghut. So who is that, practically?
These are the politicians, the parliamentarians, the ruling elite who speak on behalf of the idol.
The logic here is relentless when you really look at it.
It is airtight in its own framework.
Because the text points out a crucial dilemma for any ruling elite. In the Islamic paradigm, the physical text of the Quran cannot be amended.
Right.
It is divinely protected. No human has the edit privileges.
Exactly. Zero edit privileges.
So, if the ruling elite, the Taghut, want to pass draconian principles that violate divine law, say they want to institutionalize fractional reserve banking, legalize riba, or implement totally secular social policies, they hit a massive structural wall. They cannot just pull out a Sharpie and cross out verses in the Quran. Nature and the faith of the populace blocks them.
Exactly. They are structurally blocked. So what do? They need a legal workaround.
Need a proxy.
Yes. They bypass the divine command entirely by legislating explicitly in the name of the country-state flag god idol.
Wow.
The secular constitution effectively replaces the divine text. It allows the elite to look at the population and say, we aren't breaking divine law. We are simply operating under a completely different parallel legal sovereign. We are acting in the interest of the state.
That is brilliant and terrifying. And this leads to what the AZADI project calls the oath fallacy.
The oath fallacy, yes.
We see this absolutely everywhere. Politicians, soldiers, judges, even newly naturalized citizens, we all stand up, raise our right hand, and swear oaths to uphold the Constitution.
It's a standard practice globally.
Right. But the text frames this seemingly noble act as a logical and spiritual absurdity.
It is framed as the ultimate baseline compromise of the individual. The text argues that swearing an oath to a secular constitution is the structural equivalent of looking at the ever-living Creator and saying, I will abide by this man-made, amendable constitution, even if it actively and openly violates your eternal book.
Man, that is heavy.
It forces all of the unchangeable laws of nature to be subordinated and placed under the name of a non-living manufactured thing.
I have to pause and push back on this, or at least test the weight of it, because the psychological conditioning we undergo is immense.
So it's baked into us from birth.
Exactly. We are raised from childhood, literally from elementary school, to view the flag and the Constitution as the ultimate symbols of human rights, of freedom, of protection against tyranny. We salute them at sporting events. We sing anthems to them with tears in our eyes.
Yes, we do.
Is the text genuinely arguing that these symbols, these concepts we deeply love and associate with our safety, are actually the very mechanisms of Iblis?
Yes.
Like a systemic deception used to quietly bypass the unalterable divine code?
Yes. That is precisely the unyielding core of their argument. The text asserts that Iblis, or the force of systemic deception, uses this godless secular world precisely because the divine book cannot be amended.
Wow, because they can't change the real text, they have to make a fake one.
Exactly. Since the truth cannot be altered, a parallel fiction must be constructed. Therefore, the false deity of the modern age, what ancient texts might call a Baal, is the country-state flag god idol.
Unbelievable.
The modern system essentially replaces the functions of ancient high priests with parliamentarians.
Right.
These politicians function as Rab, or lords, because they grant themselves the power to add or remove laws against the divine command. And they validate that cosmic overreach by waving the physical idol of the flag.
It's a total paradigm shift. It takes everything you assume is a shield and redefines it as a cage.
It really does.
But what really fascinates me is that the AZADI project doesn't just rely on theological arguments to make this point.
No, they don't.
They attack the secular systems, specifically democratic parliaments, using pure, ruthless mathematics.
They do. And they start by completely dismantling the modern concept of Islamic democracy.
They really don't pull any punches there.
Not at all.
They call Islamic democracy a total oxymoron, structurally identical to saying Islamic taghut.
Or halal pork.
Yeah. And they prove it with a math equation that is so simple it almost feels like a trick.
The delegation paradox.
Right. 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 equals 0. It never, under any circumstances, equals 1.
To truly grasp this mathematical demolition, we have to look at what they call the individual baseline.
Okay, the individual baseline.
They contrast the secular illusion with the true natural order, which the text strictly and exclusively refers to as Dini Fitrat Din Islam.
Dini Fitrat Din Islam.
Yes. Now, within Dini Fitrat Dini Islam, the natural order is not a subjective religious belief. It is an absolute physical fact. It is the operating code of the universe.
Like gravity or thermodynamics.
Exactly. So, within this reality, an individual human has exactly zero inherent structural authority to alter the constants of nature or to rewrite divine boundaries.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Let's take the boiling point of water. You have zero authority to vote that water should now boil at 50 degrees Celsius.
Right, because physics doesn't care about my vote.
Exactly. In the exact same way, you have zero inherent moral or structural authority to authorize the theft of usury or to legalize what is divinely prohibited.
Right. My baseline authority to change the fundamental laws of the universe is absolute zero. Your baseline authority is zero. The guy down the street, zero.
Which brings us to the core mechanism of democracy, what the text calls the group fallacy.
The group fallacy. Okay.
Democracy relies on the magical belief that if you aggregate millions of individual zeros, you somehow manufacture a one. You manufacture sovereign authority.
Right.
But pure mathematics dictates that if one person has zero authority to legalize usury or override natural law, adding a billion zeros together through a voting block still equals exactly zero.
Wait, hold on. Let me test this logic.
Go for it.
I get the math that 0 plus 0 equals 0. But doesn't aggregating millions of people at least provide a consensus on human logistics? I mean, we need to decide where to build a bridge or what the speed limit should be. Is the text really saying that the entire concept of public consensus is completely invalid just because we can't vote on the laws of physics?
That's a crucial distinction, and the AZADI text addresses it beautifully.
Oh, they do?
Yeah. They aren't saying human beings can't organize logistics. They are saying humans cannot delegate sovereign legislative power over fundamental truths. You cannot give what you do not own.
Yeah.
Because you don't own the right to legalize interest, you cannot vote for a representative and grant them the right to legalize interest.
I see.
Therefore, the entire foundation of democratic legislative sovereignty, the idea that Parliament can pass any law it wants as long as 51% of people agree, is exposed as a mathematical myth.
The structural engineering metaphor they use in the text is brilliant for this.
The airplane one, right?
Yeah. They compare human society to building an airplane. When engineers are designing a Boeing 747, they don't hold a democratic vote on the laws of aerodynamics.
No, they definitely don't.
They don't walk down the aisle and ask the passengers, hey, do Do we feel like the law of lift should apply today? Should we vote to ignore gravity?
Right.
They discover the unyielding, pre-existing laws of physics, and they obey them. If you vote to ignore gravity to accommodate popular opinion, the plane crashes.
It is a flawless analogy for dini fitrat, dini Islam. Nature is brutally efficient. Nature demands unity and adherence to its constants.
Yeah.
When a society tries to operate outside the boundaries of fitrat, by writing a secular constitution that actively contradicts natural law, by institutionalizing debt, by allowing the state to play goddery, the inevitable mathematical result is facade.
Facade, which translates to what in this context?
Acute systemic chaos, economic inflation, wealth concentration, societal decay, environmental destruction.
The plane crashes.
The plane crashes. And the text argues that the inflation and financial crises we see globally aren't accidents. They are the unavoidable aerodynamic failure of a society trying to outvote gravity.
Okay, so if the math of democracy equals 0, and the airplane of secular governance is structurally destined to crash, how do the authors of this text suggest we prove this before impact?
Well, they provide proofs.
Right, because philosophical math is great, but are there actual observable tests they propose?
Yes, and this is where the AZADI project moves from theory into empirical verification.
Okay, let's get into the verification.
They provide 360-degree litmus tests designed to prove the unassailability of dini fitrat, dini Islam. These aren't abstract thought. They're mechanical thought experiments.
Right.
The first is called the Riba Challenge.
Let's lay out the challenge.
The text issues a universal dare to the secular world. Try to implement and enforce interest-based banking riba as the operational law of the land without invoking, mentioning, or relying on the authority of a country-state flag god idol.
Meaning, try to enforce it totally nakedly, without the legal fiction of the state protecting you.
Exactly. Go out and try to extract wealth from people without pointing to the Constitution, the flag, or the state apparatus.
Then what happens?
The text concludes it is mechanically impossible. Without the artificial idol to act as a psychological and legal shield, the naked violation of divine text cannot stand.
Because nobody would accept it.
Right. The enforcers, the police, the courts, they would have no justification. You cannot just stand up and say, I am personally overriding the ever-living creator to steal your wealth.
No one would go along with that.
Exactly. You have to say, I am acting in the interest of the state.
Wow. The inability to execute riba independently of that artificial framework proves that the secular system is essentially just a mandatory mechanical mask for corruption.
It is.
It's a costume they have to wear to get away with the theft.
Precisely. But the second test they propose, the burning of the book test, is even more vivid and profound.
I love this one. I want you, the listener, to actually visualize this scenario.
Great thought experiment.
Imagine a cataclysmic event where every single written text, every digital archive, every legal record, every hard drive, and every piece of paper on Earth is burned and permanently destroyed.
Just completely gone.
Yeah. The secular constitutions of every single nation. Vaporized permanently. All the complex legal codes of the country-state flag god idol are gone forever. No backup copies.
A complete slate wiped clean.
Right. But the text points out that from the ashes of that destruction, 3 realities would immediately return from the canvas of existence, simply because they are hard-coded into reality itself.
First, the Quran. Because it is preserved perfectly, word for word, within the biological memory of millions of humans across the globe.
It doesn't rely on paper to exist.
No, it doesn't. Second, the concept of statecraft and logistics. Because the natural law of human unity and organization will always reassert itself. Humans will always need to figure out how to distribute water and build roads.
Right, that's just a constant.
And third, science. The unchangeable physical constants of the cosmos. The boiling point of water and the laws of gravity remain exactly the same.
It brilliantly separates temporary human fiction from cosmic constants.
It really does.
The constitution of a nation-state is just a temporary story we agreed to tell each other. If it burns, it's gone forever. We would have to invent a new story. But dini fitrat, dini Islam remains because it is the foundational source code of reality. It doesn't need a printing press to be true.
This test establishes an absolute baseline. Any philosophy, any banking system, any legal structure engineered outside of dini fitrat, dini Islam is a deficient, unstable myth. It cannot survive the destruction of its physical idols.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the disease. If the secular system is a fragile, flammable myth that uses a piece of cloth to hide mathematical financial slavery, What is the exact structural fix?
Right, the solution.
The AZADI project clearly knows the plane is crashing. How do they propose we rebuild the aircraft?
They demand a total mechanical solution. To completely eliminate structural shirk and satisfy the absolute monopoly of divine command, the system must be physically and legally restructured.
Okay, how so?
The text references Surah Al-Kahf, verse 26, which states unequivocally that the Creator shares his command with absolutely no one.
So you can't just slap a crescent moon on a democratic parliament, call it Islamic, and go about your day.
Not at all. That is still operating under the exact same country-state flag god idol.
Yeah.
You're just giving the idol a religious paint job.
Wow.
The AZADI structural analysis demands a strict, ruthless, two-part constitutional bifurcation, a complete mathematical split of how society is governed.
Let's unpack this constitutional bifurcation. How do Part 1 and Part 2 function?
So Part 1 consists of immutable principles. These are derived strictly and exclusively from the Quran and the Sunnah.
Okay.
These are the fixed constants of reality, the rules on usury, justice, the preservation of life, and crucially, there are absolute zero human edit privileges allowed in Part 1.
None at all?
None. No parliament, no king, no military general, and no voting bloc of millions can alter a single comma of Part 1. It is locked.
And this addresses my earlier question about logistics.
Exactly.
Because if Part 1 is the unchangeable divine law, the things we have zero authority to touch, then there has to be a mechanism for the mundane, everyday stuff. We still need to figure out traffic laws, zoning, and how to build hospitals.
Exactly. And that is what Part 2 is for. Part 2 consists of working policy.
Working policies, okay.
These are the shifting logistical variables: administrative statecraft, traffic laws, zoning codes, logistical operations. These are fully adjustable by public assembly.
Okay, so you can vote on these.
Yes, the people can debate them, vote on them, and change them as technology and times evolve. However, and this is the absolute unbreakable condition, Part 2 policies must remain functionally subordinate to Part 1.
Right.
The public assembly can never pass a logistical policy that overrides, bends, or breaks the immutable constants of Part 1.
It is exactly like the hardware and software of a computer.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right. Part 1 is the BIOS, the hard-coded operating system. It tells the motherboard how to process electricity. It prevents the computer from overheating and melting down into a puddle of plastic.
Yeah.
You can't change it, and if you have any sense, you shouldn't want to change it. Part 2 is the apps you install.
Right.
You can update your apps, you can delete them, you can write new software based on your daily needs. But no app you download is ever allowed to rewrite the core BIOS.
That is a perfect modern analogy. By instituting this strict mechanical demarcation, you completely strip the country-state flag god idol of its legislative throne.
It's gone.
You remove the artificial authority network required to commit structural shirk. The politicians no longer have the power to play God.
Right.
And by doing so, you place the supreme law natively in the name of the ever-living Creator. It structurally cures the pathology of deception.
It essentially unplugs the casino.
Yes, it does.
It removes the legal mechanism that allowed the central bankers to print fiat money out of thin air, because Part 1 dictates the Sunnah standard of intrinsic value.
Exactly.
It stops the politicians from legitimizing the theft. It locks the system into reality.
And this leads us to the culmination of the AZADI project's master principle statement. They synthesize this entire massive framework through an empirical verification, using a specific verse from the Quran, Surah Fusilat, verse 53.
Let's read that verse and break down its two dimensions. The verse translates to, "We will show them our signs in the universe and in their own selves until it becomes manifest to them that this is the absolute truth."
Right.
Let's look at that first half. The signs in the universe, or what the text calls the external mechanics.
Think about the physics of a shadow on the ground. A shadow cannot exist on its own right. It fundamentally requires a physical object blocking light to cast it.
Obvious.
In the exact same way, the text argues that a fake law, like the legalization of riba, cannot manifest over a physical territory without a counterfeit creator.
Oh, I see.
States are mechanically forced by natural law to construct the country-state flag god idol in order to bypass divine command. The external mechanics of the universe demand an anchor.
So the fake law is the shadow.
And the idol is the object casting it.
And then you have the second dimension of the verse, signs in their own selves, which the text links to our internal logic.
This points directly back to the delegation paradox we discussed earlier.
Okay, how so?
Deep down, in our own selves, humans fundamentally know they have zero inherent right to alter cosmic constants. We know we are small. We know we didn't create the universe.
Yeah, of course.
To hide this baseline lack of authority from ourselves, we construct an internal psychological fiction. We invest our own non-existent sovereign authority into an inanimate piece of cloth or a stone building.
It's a coping mechanism.
Yes, we trick ourselves into believing that 0 plus 0 equals 1 because facing the reality of our own powerlessness is terrifying.
So when you put all of these interlocking pieces together, the banking, the math, the psychology, the theology, what is the ultimate systemic conclusion of the AZADI project?
The conclusion acts as a definitive 360-degree causal litmus test.
Okay.
If you subtract the country-state flag god idol from the equation, if you remove the idol through the constitutional bifurcation we just outlined, the entire sequence of counterfeit legislation collapses instantly.
It just falls apart.
It has to. The bankers lose their power to print debt. The politicians lose their power to oppress. False legislation structurally cannot exist without a false god validating it.
Wow.
Therefore, the immediate collapse of these alternative secular systems serves as observable structural evidence that the existence of a law and the perfection of Din Ifitrat Din Islam is a demonstrable mechanical fact.
It all comes back to where we place our ultimate allegiance, doesn't it?
It really does.
The airtight diagnostic loop presented in these sources is just wild to trace. It takes you from the literal physical dollar bill in your pocket to the mathematical equation of a democratic vote to psychological power of a flag on a pole. And it ties it all into a single, cohesive, inescapable theory of reality.
It challenges the very foundation of what modern society accepts as default truth.
It really does.
It demands that we look at the invisible architectures we've built, the systems we've pledged our lives to, and ask a brutal question. Are they aligned with Fitrat, with the unchanging constants of nature? Or are they just elaborate mechanisms of friction, extraction, and decay?
To bring all this together for everyone listening, the AZADI sources painstakingly connect the economic enslavement of fiat currency and central banking directly to the legal fiction of secular parliaments.
Yes.
And they prove, step by step, that this entire matrix of extraction only functions under the ultimate psychological shield of the country-state flag god idol.
Exactly.
The only proposed escape from this mathematical debt slavery is a hard, uncompromising alignment with the unalterable constants of Din Ifitrat Din Islam. They demand we mathematically separate eternal, untouchable principles from temporary, mundane logistics.
Knowledge is only valuable when it is understood and applied. The text maps out the blueprint. The lingering question it leaves us with is whether humanity has the courage to actually apply the math.
And so we turn this back to you, the listener. Tomorrow morning, think about the symbols you interact with.
Yeah, really think about
When you hand over a piece of paper to buy your coffee, realize that the AZADI project is asking you to see it not as a unit of your wealth, but as a unit of someone else's manufactured debt. Think about the pledges you make, the anthems you hear, the laws you accept, simply because, well, that's just the way things are.
Right.
This material challenges you to ask a very uncomfortable, intimate question. Are you serving immutable, eternal truths, or are you unknowingly bowing to the administrative machinery of a godless world?
It's a profound question.
If the ultimate terrifying power of secular statecraft relies entirely on a shared psychological fiction, on our collective, stubborn willingness to believe that 0 plus 0 somehow equals 1, then what happens the exact moment a critical mass of humanity simply stops believing in the math?
That's the real test.
Does the physical world change at all? Or do the invisible cages we've built for each other simply cease to exist? If everyone stops believing in the illusion, do we finally see the rock for exactly what it is, something to chew on?